So I went to Cambridge recently to look for a bridge that I was told about called the Mathematical Bridge, and there it is. And that was as close as I could get. Yeah, and I want to tell the story of the Mathematical Bridge. Actually, this was the closest I could get. So I was a little bit fed up, but I was like, okay, we're here in Cambridge now, so I'm going to make the most of it. So I went out for a day in Cambridge with Rebecca and her mum, and it's a lovely town. If any of you guys are from England, you may have been to Cambridge. It's very old, lots of really old, nice buildings. This is a cool little pub here called the Eagle, and that's where they sort of discovered DNA. The two guys who discovered it were talking in that pub a lot back in the day. Here's a cool statue that Rebecca's mum told me the history about, but I've already forgotten, so sorry, Ruth. But yeah, pretty cool either way. There's just a nice classic alleyway. Look at that, beautiful stuff. It's just a nice old town. Obviously, I live in Canada now, so I don't really get the chance to see things as old as some of these buildings. Look at that alleyway, classic. Look at that alleyway. That's more of a street, but you get the idea. We went for afternoon tea. There's Rebecca looking cheeky with sandwiches and a scone. And I'm not sure what's on top, but we should get to see in a second. Some sort of tart, a chocolate tart. Eventually, we got one of these. Now, this is known as a punting boat, or at least going on one is called punting. And punting involves someone pushing you like this. Punting comes from the Dutch word for push, I think. That's what the tour guide said. We got to see a lot of cool bridges. This one is actually called the Cam Bridge, which is where Cambridge gets its name from. This is probably my favourite bridge we saw. Very cool, very imposing looking. It was quite cold, but yeah, it was really nice scenery everywhere. Just old buildings. Probably should have left the audio on of the tour guide because he explains what these are. That one on the left had a funny story. Some students put a traffic cone on top of the left tower, and by the time the authorities managed to get up there to get it down, the students had moved it to the right one. Pretty funny student behaviour there. Here's another old building. That's a library. Ominous building there. And then eventually, you may recognise this from the start of the video. This is the famous Mathematical Bridge. And there's an urban myth behind it that a guy you might have heard of called Isaac Newton designed it, and he made it so that it supported its own weight, which basically meant that it didn't need any bolts or nuts or any of the usual stuff you need to build a bridge. And the story goes that after he died, some students at the local university wanted to figure out how exactly Isaac Newton made this, so they took it apart, but when they tried to put it back together again, they couldn't figure out how he managed it, so they had to use bolts to put it back in again. Truth is, that didn't happen. It actually happened after Isaac Newton died, so he couldn't have technically built it, or if he did, that's even more impressive. But yeah, I thought it was a cool story worth telling. I thought I could talk about it while standing on the bridge, but it turns out I needed to have a whole nice day out in Cambridge and some afternoon tea in order to tell the story. Poor me, I know. Anyway, bye.